Hey everybody, Tony Baccigalupo here. It's Monday, July 13th, New York City's Q&A, as we usually do. Got Meredith and Penny here, hopefully some more folks joining us. Um, Meredith, you and I just caught up a little bit, but you want to give me a more formal intro and update on the status of everything, what's on your mind?
Yeah, so we're chugging along. The newest Kentucky guideline change is mandated masks as of last Thursday. So that's just reinforcing our common area wearing of masks and whatnot. So that makes me feel a little bit better that it's now not my rule; it's the state's rule. Most people have been doing a really good job, but I noticed a lot of as states spiked, members just automatically started, I think, being a little bit more cautious, which was nice. What else? We've actually had a couple new office members join. We had a new company move in this morning, and a couple others. So we've been focusing on that primarily, since you can still stay very isolated and have your space protected through the private offices. So that's a good sign for us that we're getting a little bit of new membership on that front. Other than that, just paying attention to what's going on. I did end up getting our little bracelets, so I have those. And then we did implement a new check-in policy. So after Sina had shared her story about having to notify members about having somebody test positive, I mandated a check-in. So we're having everybody sign in, and we have a thermometer, masks, sanitizer stations, and all that kind of stuff.
So do you have people take their own temperature?
Yeah, I mean, we were only able to get one thermometer. So the first couple days, like, I was going around, and if I'm available, then I'll double check everything, but I just placed it up front. We have a check-in for every floor. And then more importantly, I think it's everybody signing in and just knowing who's in our space on a daily basis. I've asked people if they take their temperature at home, that's fine. Just give me a little check mark, like, just kind of as a new habit trying to form. But I figured in the event that we would have to assist in any contact tracing, this is a good way of kind of just making sure we're, making it a little easier for everybody.
Yeah, and contact tracing for us would be a little bit tricky. There's been a lot of discussion about this, but the identity of our clients is confidential. And so contact tracing, I mean, do we just give, we technically can't just give the names of our clients to the Department of Health. So fortunately we haven't had to deal with that yet, but it's obviously something that we, very well may have to deal with.
Yeah, that's interesting. Good point.
Huh. We run into some really tricky territory with this stuff. It's incredible.
All new territory.
Yeah, so I think it sounds like everybody's kind of coming up with their own position on it and their own like comfort level. And there's some mix of like what the government says and what your own management says and what your members think, things like that. Are you finding this to either of you that there's a percentage of members that are not planning to come in? Have they have the ones who aren't coming in expressed to you what their standards are and what percentage or where do they figure into this?
Well, for us, we've had a couple. It's usually the smaller companies or the startups. They're a bit more flexible, but any of the companies that we have that are larger and they have like a satellite or remote office here, they're having to follow their company's guidelines. And the majority of large companies we're finding are saying giving stay at home, work from home until the end of the year. So that's where we've seen the biggest decline in membership, was when companies are saying, hey, we're downscaling our office space. Everybody's working from home until, at least 21. So that's the biggest impact. Most other people from our front have either come in because they felt safe in their private offices or have just opted to wait it out.
Meredith, how many people do you have coming into like the hot desk area?
So we don't have a ton of co-work specific members. I mean, we have, I want to say like 5 people who are pretty regular. Like today we had a walk-in. which I was surprised about. But I mean, we're able to keep everybody very distanced, which is also nice. So I'd say like 5 or 6 people most of the time, and then maybe a handful of others more scattered around throughout the week.
Meredith, like, would you mind just saying again, how big is your square footage? How many private offices do you have, and how many members do you have?
Yeah, so my numbers are probably super off now, but we have, in this location, we have 18,000 square feet. So we have 3 floors. The majority of the floors are office spaces. So I think we have, with our newest floor, I want to say 70 offices of varying sizes. And then we have, if we were at full capacity for co-work, we'd be able to probably hold maybe 30 co-work members, but I wouldn't feel comfortable with that now. And we're, like I said, I think we have less than 10 that are regulars that have been using the space. So yeah, and I mean, for the offices we have, I mean, I'd probably say, oh gosh, my numbers are so off because so much has changed the last couple of months. But I mean, I'd say we're at probably 40% capacity as of right now of like the space being used, or the offices that are still under contract. But so it's not ideal because we did lose basically a whole floor. But we have the 2-month move out notice. So we have, they're paying through August. So that gives us a cushion, but we are starting to try and fill those ahead of time so we can kind of balance out a bit better.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah.
So, and welcome to Justin and Maddie as well. So good to have you all along. Hey, we're just doing kind of our rounds of intros here, but Meredith, just to do a quick kind of double click a little bit on this, I'm curious where you think we're going in general, but for you in particular around marketing. Like, I imagine a lot of spaces are not profitable right now, or at least they're not at capacity. How are you all talking about marketing, and how are you talking about community and like gatherings? So I imagine, like, you know, what's on the table and what's not on the table as far as community activities. I realize it's a bunch of stuff. Maybe we come back to it, but do you have like a one-liner for us to start with for now?
I mean, luckily most of our space here is office space, so we are moving forward with promoting and trying to grow that form of our membership. The other portions we're trying to figure out how to pivot, so that's definitely a bigger discussion point. From the events front, we've opened it up to the state max of 50 people, but we're being very selective on what spaces we're allowing, and most people are not even doing that. I think the largest group we have is 10 people. So within our event space, which has a max capacity of 200 people, we're able to really spread stuff out and feel very safe. So we're pivoting on kind of how we talk about the space. And then we have that other space that was we were going to open May 1, but that's been paused. So that was going to be 100% co-work space. And now we're trying to figure out how to completely kind of change that purpose.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. That I think that helps me understand it. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Let's we'll just keep going around the table, and then we'll come back to these topics. Penny, let's have you go next, and then we'll do Justin and Maddie.
Yeah, so maybe just to refresh you guys, because it was helpful when Meredith told me the size of her space. Mine is really small. It's 2,700 square feet. So it's quite small, and we have 5 private offices and about 26 members. We just got our 26th member. And about 10 of those members use the offices, and then the others, you know, in principle, use this, what we call the gathering space. But the model isn't working for therapists because most of these people have full-time jobs elsewhere, and they like being part of our community. But I initially thought that this room, which is called whatever, this room, which is where the hot desks are, you know, people can either come 1 day a week or 5 days, unlimited, but they don't even come. The people who use our offices for therapy, they come. And the others participate in some of our events, but they work full time elsewhere. It's not like they want to come here and hang out. So the whole model isn't really quite working for us. But over time, we're going to figure out a different model.
Right, right. Okay, so I'm seeing kind of the pattern forming here. So we'll come back to it. All right, cool. Thanks, Penny. And then for Justin, how's things over there? What's the latest?
Yeah, so and since we're kind of giving refreshers on kind of demographics, we're a small space, super bootstrapped up here in a rural community in Kernville, California. We've got 20 members, which is actually up significantly recently, and a large part of that is we're just seeing a massive influx of people wanting to move out of LA. And as you kind of get outside of the real trafficy areas, and out of just the rat race, we're kind of one of the first communities that really feels like you're very well separated, but you could still get back to LA if you needed to. It's a few hours drive, but it's doable. So I think between that and a few other factors, we're seeing people move up here, and we're seeing people. I'm seeing people that are legitimately using the co-working space as the reason that they're able to move, and they would not move up here, and they would not be contributing to our local economy if they didn't have a co-working space here that would support them, and which is something that I've been saying for 2 years. Tony, when I first met you 2 years ago, that was one of the first things I said, is that I want to create a place that's like a destination for these high demand workers. And now all of a sudden it's kind of happening because of external forces, which is really neat. And it's starting to feel more and more, it was something I felt like I was kind of trying to force even 6 months ago. And now it feels like it's kind of happening, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. Like it's a real force. So it's all good things. What I'm a little bit I'm a little bit concerned about how seasonal this might be, because we do have several members in here right now that are going to be up here for the summer. It's kind of unclear how many of them are going to leave at the end of the summer, and versus how many of them are going to move up here permanently. But it's a roller coaster. Everything, we've got ups and downs. I think this week I'm feeling very up. A couple weeks ago I was feeling very down. So it's definitely a roller coaster right here.
Yeah, well, I feel like that might be just an inherent part of how things work in your world. That there's some rhythm to the way that people move through your space, which is not unusual for people in your kind of climate. Then it becomes about designing for that environment, right? So I've worked with clients where like they're explicitly a destination kind of a environment where most of their people are nomads, expats, people moving through. But what you end up having is this like core group of people who are the local people where they stay forever, and then there's this roving group of people that pass through, and you just design for both of those things. And maybe over time you want to grow your core group, but you also recognize that to some degree, part of your business is just, relying on that transient traffic.
And that is a very nail on the head description of what we are. So yeah.
Of course, right now you could very easily be dealing with people who think they're going to be staying there for a short time and then they end up staying a longer time. So
right, and that's kind of our we in terms of kind of the funnel, we would like to be able to carve off a certain percentage of those and say, where they kind of get a taste of something sweet and they decide that they want to stick around.
Exactly. So in that regard, I guess like the real opportunity is just wowing people so much that even if they plan to be temporary, they might decide to stay longer. or they might decide to come back, right? Like if they have a really good impression, then somewhere in the back of their head, they're thinking, oh, when it's time for me to get out of town, this is where I'm going to end up. So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Justin, what is your current split? I mean, it sounds like ours is usually a month to month, but with an expectation of going beyond a month. What is your kind of membership breakdown?
So we've got we actually I've been talking for the last year. I've started and stopped a project to actually add some private offices here, but we actually don't have any yet. I'm going to be putting a door in right over here, for the space. It's already framed in to be a private office and just haven't finished it. So we've got a few dedicated desks. We've got I would say we're probably evenly split between dedicated desks. We've got a good number of full-time members. We have some part-time members, which we define that as 10 days or less per month. And then right now in this season, and this is unusual for us, but I probably have 2 to 3 people in here a day that are doing the day passes. And that really only seems to happen during the summer. And it's way more this summer than it was last summer. And those are kind of the more transient people that we're talking about. So I think it's probably a good thing that it's all over the board. It's a little bit diverse. So if we kind of take a hit on any one of those, then we have a small, what we're calling a community membership, where they have access to our Slack and our directory and some of our online events, but they just don't have the desk space. And those are $10 memberships, so we have a few of those.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
So I'm wondering, Justin, if you have any thoughts as to like how the folks who are coming from LA, how are they finding you? Where are they coming from? What do we know about them that we can maybe apply to finding more like them?
I've been asking people. What I haven't done yet is we're kind of standing our CRM back up because we kind of neglected it. I haven't been tracking these lead sources explicitly, but I'm hearing there's a lot of word of mouth. There's word of mouth even with our local businesses because we're a fairly tight-knit community, and now our businesses are starting to really understand what the co-work is and what it has to offer people. So we're getting some from there. We're having, I think Google My Business is actually a pretty decent lead source right now. When people are searching for Wi-Fi, they see the coffee shop and then they see us.
Wow.
Which is one of the benefits of being in a small community, right? We have no competition. I had somebody find us on Facebook last night, which was, that I don't know how. Actually, I'm about to ask them when they come in. They're taking a tour today or tomorrow. I don't know how somebody from outside of our community finds us on Facebook, because Facebook is very much around the groups and the people that you know. So. And we are getting repeat traffic. We're getting people who found us, who ran into us, drove by us last year, and they decided to come check it out this year. So
that's great.
Zero paid advertising though. Nobody's.
Right.
I haven't paid for any advertising, but it's relatively organic at this point.
Have we talked about using Facebook at all in previous calls, Justin?
Yeah, we had some conversations about Facebook. My stance on Facebook is I'd like to use it for connecting to our local community, but I'm also not I'm not willing to give Facebook money from just moral grounds.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on that one.
Yeah, I remember that. I'm thinking that maybe like the more manual method to this is like figuring out what communities these people are part of. Like if you get to know the LA people a little bit, I don't know. I imagine you've already like I imagine your community is small enough you get to know these people pretty well. But I'm wondering if you could be a little bit more pointed in your research to say like, hey, what groups are you a part of in LA where there are other people like you, and like, how do I find other people who share your kinds of interests, and kind of invite them into the process of helping you figure out where there's more people like them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Listen, something that we're kind of delving into a little bit that, I don't know, it might be beneficial is we're looking into doing a Kentucky co-work passport. So even though we're not in the space to be able to expand to other cities yet, we do have partnerships with other co-work spaces within the state or region that we're looking to develop some kind of a passport. So if people were traveling into Lexington from Louisville, someone from the Story Louisville, which is a co-work space, would be able to do like a day pass or something within that membership. I don't know if developing some kind of relationship with co-work spaces in LA to then get that word of mouth and that direct connection might be helpful. And then you guys might be able to come up with some kind of a partnership or passport program of your own. So when they are vacationing or if they are going remote for the next couple months, that might be a really easy conversation. Because if it was me, I would ask my hometown co-work space, hey, I'm going to blah, blah, blah. Do you know anywhere I could connect with? So that might be an easier approach to build those relationships.
I really like that idea. We've had conversations in Kern County, which I mean, we have a massive county. To give you an idea, if I left the co-work right now and I drive an hour in 3 different directions, I'd still be in Kern County. But it's we're having conversations already within Kern County about having some sort of passport.
I'm going to call you back in a little bit.
But I really like the idea. I hadn't considered forming partnerships in LA. I think that's a really good idea, and I think that's something that I think they could get value out of too, because yeah, it kind of gives their members this kind of something to look forward to. Ooh, I could get to go up to Kernville.
Exactly. Yeah,
I like that a lot.
We're digging into it as well. So as I find out more solidified information, I'll definitely share it with y'all. But I thought that might be a nice connector.
Thanks.
Well, so I'll say my quick piece about this topic since we haven't talked with most of the people in this group about it recently. But alliances, informal and formal, are so valuable. There's no reason why co-working spaces shouldn't be friends unless they really, really can't be. But having at least a relationship. So being able to reach out and just be like, as a human, ideally you'd go visit the space, but under different circumstances, just to say, hey, I run a space. I'm here to be friendly. If there's something that you want to talk about, I'm around. And if you want to just get a virtual coffee and chat or whatever, it's good to have that relationship. There's so many benefits to having those relationships, from everything you guys just talked about around like members transferring or visiting, to sharing resources. Sometimes you need something, they might have it sitting around, and then there's bigger things that go down the line. But when you also like deal with municipal stuff, it helps if they can know that you're not just a private business, but you're a consortium of private businesses. It helps grease the wheels publicly. So like informal relationships, absolute easy win minimum to reach out. Then like something more formalized where maybe people get together to talk more, there's an internal group. And then a formal alliance is super powerful. And I've worked with a bunch of folks on that. And where you have like a website and you're marketing together, we could talk all day about that. But as a stopgap, Meredith, have we talked about the co-working visa program previously?
I don't think so.
Okay, so it's coworking.org/visa. It's run by the nonprofit that manages the free resources that power the co-working movement. It is totally like decentralized. Like anybody can add to it, anybody can join it. And when you join, you basically offer your space up to the network for people to come visit your space free of charge for up to 3 days. And in exchange, your members get to visit 400 plus spaces all over the world free of charge. Killer perk, killer perk. Um, I administer this website, and I've been involved in that for the last several years. It is an absolute no-brainer, so I highly recommend you jump on there. And if you have any trouble with it, please let me know because it's my baby, so I try to fix it.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I will check it out after this call. Thanks.
Yeah, and it's a nice way for you to like even locally to be able to say, well, me and this other space want to be friends, but setting up our own arrangement between us might be a little tricky. So let's just both agree to join this thing, and then we can both just use the third party thing to simplify. That was how it started. My friend Susan in Seattle and somebody else basically saw that they were all trying to come up with their own deals for each other, and it was just silly because every space is different. So they said, let's just make a centralized template of everybody opt into this basic program, and you can customize it, as you want. But let's start with this basic agreement and just let everybody agree to it. What's cool is that it allows us to punch above our weight. You can say, well, we're just one location, but if you're a business traveler, you want to go to other parts of the country or all over the world, you have access to a network the same way that you would if you worked for WeWork or somebody else. So highly recommend it.
Yeah, and I signed up for that a long time ago. It looks like I need to like put some work into my listing because we don't even have any photos on it. But yeah, I'll we'll go in and make some improvements there.
Great. Yay, I'm glad I got to evangelize alliances and the visa a little bit. It's one of my favorite things. It's a nice representation of what's possible with the co-working movement. We don't talk a lot about the co-working movement on this call, but it's a decentralized movement, and it's something that was created by people who wanted to open source this thing and make it easy for everybody to copy the idea and do it in their city. And there's a real strong spirit of camaraderie amongst the people who are part of this movement that I think the more we reinforce it, the better it is for everybody involved. And so while I'm at it, check out coworking.org, check out the coworking forum. It used to be a Google group, now it's a discourse forum. But that's really kind of the watering hole for the global movement, where you can connect to space owners from all over the world. And it's very much, it's well moderated. So it's a good place to get access to other owners if you ever need, something wider than this network, more publicly visible. So there you go. Cool. So we've got Tamara here. Maddie hasn't introduced yourself yet. So Maddie, do you want to say a quick hello? You want to share just a little bit about what's going on in your world? Then we'll go to Tamara.
Hi, I'm Maddie Howard. My world is the same as Justin's world. I do events and marketing for Kernville Cowork. So I don't really have anything other than what he's already spoke on. Of course, I have other projects, but nothing that is too fun or complex these days. So we can move on.
Fair enough. All right, cool. Well, I'm glad to have you along the call. Wanted to give you a chance to say hi.
Thanks.
Welcome, Tamara. How's things going? I always love seeing your face. I feel like it's like hanging out with an old friend that we've been through some, hung out before years ago.
Well, thanks. I'm sorry. I realized I was like, oh, this is going on. I really need to jump on and chat. So I'm always ever so positive and trying to stay that way, but okay. Every first of the month brings new cancellations, and there are absolutely no new people coming in the space because nobody wants to. So I'm having to make very difficult decisions. I've cut my staff down to 50% time now. I'm moving back in to run the business every day. I was at 100% capacity in dedicated desk and offices in February, and I'm now at 30. And it's looking very bad. And and so I'm just trying to, I'm trying to figure out not only how can I survive this, but is it survivable? Like, can I get through if I get through the next 4 months or whatever this may look like, because we don't know, really truly what's going to happen with co-working after this. Because the way that I'm seeing this and everything that I'm reading right now is it's kind of like reading about COVID. You got 50% people over here saying this, and you got 50% people over here saying this. So you're reading articles that are like, oh my God, co-working is going to bounce out of this and we're going to just boom and blah, blah, blah. And then you got the others who are like, this is the end of co-working, you know? And what I don't want to do is put myself in a bunch more debt to survive this, only to come out of it and not survive. Yep. And then be left with more debt in a business that's not in existence anymore.
Yeah.
And so I had a really rough week last week. 2 more people canceled offices, and it's already like a freaking ghost town up there anyway, which is disheartening as it is. I was on COVID quarantine because my husband was exposed to someone at the fire station. So I couldn't be around anybody. Thank God he came back negative and I'm out of jail now, which is great. I'm just I'm seeking counsel from a lot of people that I know, and I'm having like one big Zoom call with several business people that I know to kind of talk about all of this. I just think what I'm trying to do is be a really smart businesswoman at this point, to say, okay, I got an EIDL loan that I haven't touched. It's sitting in the bank. And do I tap this loan and put myself in more debt, which, by the way, I already have one SBA loan I'm paying on, right? Do I tap this loan to cover rent and the more expenses that I have now than I did in 2016? And then, like I said, to be closing my doors December 31st, potentially. I don't know. So I'm trying to me, it's not about being doomsday-y more than it's just trying to be a smart business person.
Yeah.
Really evaluate all the angles and all the sides of this with so much unknown, right? We just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that, Tamara. And if y'all don't mind, I think we should dive into this a little bit more, because I think it's important for everybody, but especially for Tamara right now. So we're in a place where we just can't know a lot, right? And man, this thing just keeps kind of evading us in terms of us being able to pin down what's going to happen next. And so uncertainty is a factor, right? It's a piece of information that we factor into how we go about things, right? And you're in this position where you're running a space, you're dealing with the financial commitments and the losses associated with it, and we have to work with what we've got. And so what I'm thinking is, I want to say like a few random things, and then if you want to, we could try to like piece it together. First off, just the philosophical place of you're a human, your business is a thing, and we're going to figure out what to do with the thing, but you're still a person who's going to be a leader. Did you read my blog post tomorrow? I wrote a whole blog post about co-working space owners who are struggling or thinking about the closing topic.
Okay, I'll read it.
Yeah.
Is it on which website is it on?
It's on my personal website. I'll grab you a link right now.
The Tony B one, whatever that is. Okay.
Yeah, Tony Bacigalupo. I'm pasting.
Bacigalupo.
Yeah, whatever that means.
I love it.
So there's you, and you're going to be a leader no matter what. And if in the timeline of your life there's this period, where stuff has to close or go down or temporarily go down or whatever, change form.
Yeah.
Whatever, it's just on the other side, your work continues, and your work continues throughout, right? So we try to, obviously you're personally invested in this, and there's a lot of strong feelings and emotion around considering that you may have to close your baby and all that you've put into it. But we try to create some sense of separation and perspective to say, like, we're playing a long game here. This is a piece of a longer story, right? My general suspicion and fear is that we may see a lot of co-working spaces close simply because of the nature of what's going on, that it's just going to be very difficult for places to stay in business. So my perspective is both doomsday and renaissance, but it's going to be in that order, and that we may see a lot of spaces decide to close, and then on the other side of this is going to be an unbelievable boom like you've never seen before, but it might be 12, 18, 24 months before that happens, and between now and then it's going to suck, you know, and hopefully I'm wrong. Maybe we get a better handle on this thing, but you know, that's what I'm bracing myself for and what I've seen so far. And your example is characteristic of that. So there's separation, right? And then there's figuring out what we have to work with given your current situation. You already mentioned EIDL, and I know there's the PPP. They're talking about doing another round. I feel like there's some forgivable stuff in there as well, which can extend to rent, right? So
yeah, but it's I don't know. I know some of you are a little bit bigger space than me, but if I got $8,500 in PPP money.
Yeah, it's a drop in the bucket. I know.
If you don't have massive salaries, it's nothing. That didn't even that covered me for literal, because I had my employee was only in for 10 months last year.
Yeah.
So they divided it by 12 months.
Yeah.
So that ran out at the beginning of June. And yes, thank God that is forgivable, and that gives me some cushion in the bank. So don't think that I have cushion, but I'm also trying to be realistic, right? Yeah. So yes, I have taken advantage of all of that stuff. I got the $2,000 EIDL grant, but remember, I refunded that back to all my members who were not able to use the space.
Yeah. Out
of good faith and trying to keep a loyal community. And I mean, people who can stay are staying, but the people whose businesses are suffering, what am I going to do, right? I can't fault them by no means.
So,
you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm just saying we try to maximize whatever we can get out of that, right? It's one piece of it's not enough, but it's one piece. Right. And maybe there's more territory there to explore. I don't know. Have you been talking to your landlord? What's that been like?
Yeah, but here's my thing, right? I extended my lease 2 years ago when we hit a rough spot right after WeWork and Common Desk opened. And so I'm extended out to 2023. The last thing I want to do is add on. I've just got 2.5 months rent, and that's being added on the back of my lease. The last thing I want to do is add on to my lease.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'm just saying, you've been talking to your landlord, and they were able to move some of your rent to the end. Is that what you're basically
they gave me 2.5 months, and I could talk to them, and I am going to present all these things to them and just say, here's the deal, right?
Yeah.
It's either I'm going to make this long term, and you're going to reduce my rent once and for all, period, because the marketplace is not what it was when you leased this to me.
Yeah.
You know, and they're really good people. So yes, I am going to talk to them.
Right. Because what I'm thinking, and this is really important for all of us, and I don't understand it fully, but I want to, is I don't know that a lot of spaces are going to make it through this unless the landlords give them some permanent relief. And I don't mean deferring payment.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
mean like the rent is this and now it's this. And maybe that's only for a few months, but the rent has to come down. These spaces are worth less money than what we all agreed to them when we signed the lease, and it's nobody's fault, but we have to deal with the reality of that. And now if the landlord can't afford to take that hit because then they'd be foreclosed upon, so be it. But if they can afford to take the hit, they have to, because otherwise you're going to go out of business and they're not going to rent out that space for a year.
Not at all.
So it's either take less now and hopefully keep it on an ongoing basis for until we ride this out, or get zero. That's pretty much your options, right? And so I think we have to go to the landlords and really, you know, when we're in a situation such as yours tomorrow, and hopefully nobody else in this call ever goes there, but maybe other people tuning in, you have to go to them and just say, look, these are the realities of the situation, and we have to do some math. And I think you don't need to know for sure, but I think ultimately, like, kind of the third phase of what I'm going after here, Tamara, is to set some standard that is dispassionate, that you stand back and you look at it and say, if we clear this bar, I'll keep giving it a try. If we don't, I have to start moving into conversations about what the next phase of this looks like, right? And so then you can at least separate it from your own emotional human to say, like, objectively, this is just what we're looking at, right? If we don't hit this number, then I can't pay this number, and then this starts to collapse and we start to run into problems, right? And then what you can do is, even if you say, all right, if we don't hit this number by this day, then I have to move forward. If you don't hit that number by that day, you don't have to decide to keep your promise to yourself, but you can at least have an objective baseline to say, wow, we didn't hit that number. I got to think about what that means, right? And the other thing is, if you say, okay, that's the number, maybe we're just under it, but we're close and I feel optimistic, blah, 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 and now you have a basis. If you said, we got to be here and we're here, and it seems like it's going that way, then it's a lot easier to be like, guys, we got to do something about this, right? So for example, my friend, who I guess I can out her, but I'll leave it. So she ran a space for a long time, called me up and said, Tony, I'm thinking of closing because we're losing money. We've been losing money. Pretty sure we're going to keep losing money. And the landlord wants to sell the building anyway and demolish it. So we figure we're going to be kicked out of this building in a year anyway. And I've also realized, after thinking about this up and down for many years, I still want to be a co-working space owner. So what I'm thinking is cut the cord now, invest in virtual, and immediately begin work on the reopening of the new space in 2021. Am I crazy? And my answer was, no, actually, that sounds brilliant. Sounds like leadership, right? Because what happens is you go from trying to keep up with all this accumulation of debt and on trying to just keep your head above water, struggling, to saying, you know what? No, I'm out. Sign up tomorrow to pre-order your membership in our amazing new space next year. All of a sudden, you go from being way behind to being way ahead. Because now you can say, I'm taking pre-orders, deposits on my new space that opens in 21, right? And like, now you're ahead. Now you're way ahead of your new space. And in the meantime, we invest in what I've been screaming about for years, which is that we are building entrepreneurial support networks. We're not building physical workspaces. We're building support networks, and the support network lives regardless of if you're sharing a physical space. So if you actually learn how to invest in that and get really fucking good at it and get people to pay you for it, you get people to pay you 20, 30, 50 bucks a month, 100 bucks a month to be a part of that community that can live online, in person, in a socially distanced, healthy, safe way, or in other people's spaces, whatever you can do for the next 6 months, year, who knows how long. Now you've got this incredible network of paying customers that can't wait to invest in the new space that you're going to reopen, right? So like, that sounds freaking great. And my friend, she happened to be in a place where that made sense for her situation, where that move just, I think it's the right move. I don't know how that translates to you, but I think if we have some objective way of looking at the situation, then you can at least give yourself a couple of milestones or levels to kind of break through. And look, like, we're dealing with uncertainty too. So you're in Texas, right? So like, Texas is bad right now. New York was bad for a while, and then it got better. And I don't know what the timelines are going to be like. Everything's crazy right now. So part of it is to say, look, we give it until whatever it is, the end of August, or whatever your baselines are for checking in, and you say money status, membership status, personal sanity status, status of Texas, right? And like, give me a few numbers to just use as a baseline here, and look where the arrows have been going, right? And that at least gives you a sense of what you're dealing with. That's my start. What do you think?
That's good. That's good. It's funny. My daughter just got accepted to an acting school, and I had to go over and talk to the financial aid person, and he gave me three sheets of paper on how financial aid can work with the student loans, right? You can do it this way and pay $1,100 extra a month. You can do it this way and you can get the parent loan, which is a nightmare, or you could do it this way. And so I kind of was like, I'm going to use that as my methodology when I talk to my landlord.
Yeah.
Oh, we could do it this way, and this is how it'll go, and just make it very simplistic for him, and or this way or this way.
You know, I even wonder, this is radical, but I wonder if this is even an opportunity to try to, it would be radical and very difficult to pull off, but if you have a good relationship, to try to change the agreement to a joint venture.
That was one of my options. I've talked to them about this in the past because the Arlington location was going to be set up that way, right? And that was a part of one of the things I wanted to say was, okay, here's income. If I didn't have rent, if this was the income minus just the regular expenses, this is what the profit would be. We could split this.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
And
So that was going to be one of my options.
and I think maybe the trade, like outside of COVID, the trade off that I did when I opened my first space, it was like kind of like this. It was like a minimum number, and then there was a profit share on top, so they knew they would get a certain amount. And the trade off is basically they have upside. So if I'm doing gangbusters, they actually make more money than they would have if they just charged me rent, right?
Right.
So we give up some of our margin, and so that's like a just traditional business format. Since what we're talking about is so inherently temporary, maybe that's not how you do it. But
So what was your split after your base? I've seen 60-40, 70-30, 50-50.
I could try to pull it up. This is from 2008, so it's a little rusty.
Yeah. Okay.
But I might be able to pull it up. I might even be able to share the old agreement that we did, which
Yeah,
would be
that's cool. That's cool.
wild for me to pull up.
So if I'm correct, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, I know Penny owns her space. Meredith, Maddie, and Justin, are you guys owners or just working in the space?
You mean owners of the co-working space or the
Yes.
building itself?
Owner of the co-working space.
Yes, I am owner of the co-working space. Maddie is our newest employee.
Okay.
But I'm leasing the building.
You're leasing a building like I am?
Yes.
And Meredith, what about you?
Yeah, we're leasing as well.
And are you the owner?
No, I'm the community manager.
Not that that's a problem. I just wanted a clarity because there is a little bit. I would love to know, Meredith, what is your employer's actually talking to you about, right? How honest is he or she being with you? And then Justin and Penny, I know you're so new. It breaks my heart for you. I don't know about you, Justin, but I wonder, are you experiencing any of this? And what are your thoughts?
I can. So I shared a little bit about where we're at before you joined. I think March and April, and getting into May was really dark for us. And we had to make a decision of whether to infuse more of our very valuable, personal money into the co-work to keep it going and to extend our runway. We're just without getting into our personal situation, we giving that up was a really hard decision, and so we did decide to invest a little more money into the space to extend our runway. We partly because of geography and positioning, and sheer luck, we're running into a situation right now where we're actually on the upswing. And part of that is because there's a lot of people that are moving out of LA that they look on the map and they say, by the time I get out of the rat race, out of the traffic, into the clean air, what's the next place that's attractive to live? And there's a lot of people that are seeing that up here. And so I'm actually becoming inundated with people that are trying to move up here, and the only reason they can move up here to a rural community is because there's a co-working space that they can work out of and have stable internet. So that is
That's awesome. I'm so happy for you though, in that sense. I mean, honestly, there's nothing I want more than to see our industry and you guys survive and thrive, right? And thrive. So that's phenomenal.
I feel like in the last couple of weeks, I feel like we've started to turn a corner from barely surviving to it looks like we're going to be thriving at least for a season. It's hard. Anytime any of us have anything figured out right now, the next week everything changes. So
No doubt.
um,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna bank on anything. But right now, this week is a good week for us. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I was feeling totally different. So
and
um,
and it could be that way for me as well.
yeah,
You know, I know that right now, again, like I said, all this is boils down to, like Tony said, like last week was the emotional week. Then, you know, this weekend was like, okay, let's get back to logic and let's think like a smart business person and look at all of these things and pull the emotion out of it and try to be smart and look ahead and evaluate. It's just it's just scary with so much unknowns right now. It just is. Like, I mean, I'm hitting numbers I hit in 2016, and the challenge is that nobody's coming in. Like, there's no new members. That is unheard of. I just came off the best 18 months of my business. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, you know, doesn't matter how much marketing I can do, does not matter. I can't change people's minds and their fear of going out.
Yeah.
So Justin, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Are you fairly newly open?
2 years.
Okay. Yeah. 3 years was our when we hit 2.5, 3 years, we really started to hit our stride. Is when things started to really explode for us.
Tamara, I'm wondering if, because I'm realizing like I still have fairly strong feelings about people reopening, and especially in places where cases are jumping, and you know, like I have my own safety concerns. Part of me, still doesn't feel comfortable that I'm on the call with a bunch of folks who are operating physical spaces right now. Like, and I want to name that because I probably should. But I'm wondering if one of the pieces of this also is, and this is coming back to Meredith and what we tried to talk about a little bit earlier with everybody, is just how we can invest in building social capital, how we can invest in building community and connection between the people in your city throughout the vagaries of this journey, so that, let's say your space goes like this, and maybe it goes like this and then it comes back later, right? But that your level of community value and connection can just be steadily climbing throughout all this madness, because you as a human and everyone else as a human is going on this journey together. And so, like, nobody's coming into your space because they're afraid. And people who are afraid are stuck in their houses alone, stressing out about all this and dealing with their own business stuff, which is an opportunity for a community builder, right? And so I know you have to deal with like the fear and the logistics of running your space. And I'm wondering if part of the solution to that is to lean into the problem a bit and meet people where they're at, figuratively speaking, to say like, hey, are you scared and confused and don't know what the hell to do? Because I sure feel that way. Let's get on a phone call and let's have a chat about what to do about it. And even if we don't know what to do about it, let's at least talk about the fact that we're all let's not feel alone in us trying to navigate this together, right? And by the way, if you guys want to form, support communities, support groups around helping each other with your businesses, with your personal lives through this time, that's a feature of my online membership, right? And so, if you want to be a paying customer in this online community, you can have regular support for navigating this. So, I know people, it's rare, and I wish it were very common, but I know people who run co-working spaces where they have hundreds of members in their basic membership level. And it doesn't do a great job of paying the rent, but if you have 200 people giving you $30 a month, you could do that with a physical space. That's pretty handy.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. I mean, yeah, I agree. Well, I will tell you, Tony, for those of us who are still running our physical spaces, you can survive COVID, because we had a COVID positive case. and one of my conductors who works the front, they came back to us on a very part-time 10 to 2 basis, 1 day a week. She came back positive. Nobody got sick. As soon as she got a fever, she never came back in the space.
Was she wearing, what, tell us more. Was she wearing a mask?
No. It was before we implemented the mandatory masks within open space. She came in 9 to 2 that day. And the next day, so Monday, by 7 the Tuesday evening, she had a fever, mild fever, and like a scratchy throat. The next day, her son had an earache and a mild fever. Her fever was gone in 12 hours. She sees a home-based doctor, so her doctor came to her house, said, yeah, we think he's got an earache, you're fine. Her protocol is to test for COVID. I did not know. But even if she had not been exposed to anybody with COVID, as far as what she knew. 10 days later, she contacted us, let us know that she tested positive, and we let the community know. Anybody who, mind you, we have very few people in the space, but we had a couple people come in that day because it was Monday getting their mail. They said, yeah, I picked up my mail. I said hi to Mary, but that was it. Like, we're, keeping distance, and nobody got sick.
Wow.
But I mean, I've had constant communication. And like I said, my husband sat next to a fireman for an entire day at all of his meals, and he didn't get it.
That's what
He's high risk.
That's what mystifies me about this thing, is like, it's so, everybody's experience is wildly different. It's crazy.
And go ahead, Penny.
I just want to say I have a question about, like, how have things gone? So in New York City, we had a huge outbreak of COVID, and I assume all the co-working spaces were closed. And I'm wondering what happened since then, because like now you're in Texas and you guys are having an outbreak. And so obviously people aren't, wanting to go out, but how long has it taken places to bounce back? Tony, do you have any information on how long it takes to bounce back once the COVID is more under control?
Well, as far as I understand it, everything in New York is still closed. Offices, nobody's going into offices still.
Really?
Yeah. But our numbers are down, and they've stayed down. But don't
people
know
are out and about walking the streets again. I can see that.
People are out and about walking the streets, but the thing is that we're staying outside. So even with phase 3, they canceled indoor dining. They were going to bring that back, and they stopped that. And offices are still, I don't know when, but we're staying away from indoors. Prolonged time indoors is really, is really a big problem, and the mask wearing, right? And so that's why I feel, really concerned about co-working spaces. But Penny, to your point, like, I think it largely depends on compliance. So like, part of why New York was able to clamp it down was because we shut everything down. We put on our masks, and we went through absolute hell, and like, the problem is that April and May, hearing the sirens, like, just like not being able to get groceries, not being able to buy a mask. Like, I remember when I got an N95 mask, one mask, and it was like, oh my God, thank God I've got one. Like, it was just like a very unique time. And so we all got scared straight. And there's plenty of people here who are not wearing masks, and who, everybody has a different degree of seriousness that they take this with. But, we're still not, as a city, I think we've avoided the things that are going to cause the super spreader events that really get this to happen. And a lot of that involves prolonged indoor gatherings and not wearing masks. So the concern I have now is that because the numbers are so out of control, and because the media narrative, or I don't want to use the word media, but like the societal narrative has shifted to, we're going to figure out how to reopen, and we're going to figure out how to get back to life without clamping down the numbers first, means that we're in territory that I can't predict. Like, if for example in Texas, like New York went like this and we clamped down, and then went like that. Now 2 months later, it's going up in Texas. If Texas behaves the same way New York did, then it'll go that way. But I don't think it will, because that's not the narrative we're having, right? And so if the narrative is we're going to figure out how to ride this out and still get together, then it might go like that, or it might go like that, or whatever. I don't know. And that I don't understand. I think the New York precedent, we can learn from it, but there's also, it's a little
Well, I
bit
think I
uncharted
think the
territory.
difference and the blessing too is that this has now mutated the virus. This is what my member's doctor told her. It's mutated, and so while like in Fort Worth we don't have massive numbers, it is Houston, it's others, Austin. It's not massive in Fort Worth. That's irrelevant, but I just wanted you guys to know that. But it's mutated. You have so many people getting it, but nobody's getting really sick, and there's so few deaths. Whereas, unfortunately, Tony, you guys had so many nursing homes that were just rampant with it, and that is tragic. We had that happen with a jail here.
Yeah.
You know, those where they can't go anywhere.
Yeah. When you look at, I don't know if you guys follow the New York Times coronavirus tracker page where they have like really awesome charts, but they list like the biggest hotspots, and it's all nursing homes and correctional facilities. Yeah. Yeah, and I see what you're saying, Tamara. And like maybe where we end up culturally as a community is, you know, circa March, April, we said like, oh my God, COVID, I came in contact with somebody, I'm going to die. Whereas now maybe the prevailing attitude is going to shift to, hey, maybe this is less dangerous for X, Y, and Z reasons. And man, I hope that's accurate. I hope that's correct, because that might be our only way out of mega depression. And it's hard for me to, I hope that that's the case. It's hard for me to buy it because of my own experience with it. You know, but we can cross our fingers and hope that that's where the perception shifts.
And I don't know, have you have family? I've had my brother-in-law and my brother both had it.
My family knows, my dad personally knows 7 or so people who have died.
And I did have one distant family member in Long Island Pass that died from it.
And like not necessarily, you know, just like super old people either.
Yeah.
So man, it's a tricky thing.
It is. Well, thank you for that feedback. Tony, I'm probably going to follow up with you separately to talk more about this.
Sure. I will say tomorrow I found the old document.
I
found the language in the document, and it is, they got the entire revenue of the first 5 members, full-time members, and then half I guess I said profit, but I meant, well, you see how I wrote it in the chat. Basically, they get half of the next 5. So that basically meant that they got most of the early customers, but then I could keep the upside if I did well. So there you go. And that was with a subletter, so it wasn't like a landlord company. It was just
this was a small space that you had though, right?
Yeah, it was tiny. Yeah.
Okay.
We had 25 desks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
All right,
you.
y'all. I know we went over a little over time, but I know this is important stuff. If anybody wants to keep chatting, just hit me up over email. And yeah, stay healthy, stay safe. I will see you in a week.
Thanks everybody for letting me jump on with you.
We'll be thinking about you.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right.